Last week was our first playoff game, and my plaque psoriasis was so itchy under all my gear. Sometimes just thinking about scratching could take me out of the moment. And then my doctor told me I could get clearer skin with a pill called Otezla.
Otezla apremilast is a prescription medicine used to treat adult patients with plaque psoriasis for whom phototherapy or systemic therapy is appropriate. Otezla can help you get clearer skin after just 4 months.
Okay, ready for the next game. Talking to my doctor about a pill was a total game changer.
Don't use Otezla if you're allergic to it. Get medical help right away if you have trouble breathing or swallowing, swelling of the face, lips, tongue, throat, or arms. Severe diarrhea, nausea or vomiting, depression, suicidal thoughts, or weight loss can happen. Tell your doctor if any of these occur and if you have a history of depression or suicidal thoughts. Live in the moment. Ask your doctor about Otezla. Call 1-844-4-OTEZLA or visit Otezla.com for prescribing info about cost, and more.
Hello everyone, this is a surprise bonus mini-sode of Backlisted.
Free online
and we are joined at the kitchen table of Unbound by Stuart Evers. Hello Stuart.
Hello there.
And Lissa Evans.
Hello.
And we've just been recording literally hours of material for the next
laying down track after track.
It's like the basement tapes.
Yeah.
Except,
It's like the basement tapes.
Yeah.
Patrick Hamilton.
Slightly less sober.
Yeah, indeed. So, but we have a rare. Please don't start me off. So we have a rare opportunity here. I talked a couple of podcasts ago about the novel Lincoln in the Bardo by George Saunders. I said on that episode that first of all I really loved the novel, that I thought it was a masterpiece, and that I also felt in my former bookseller role that it was going to be a big hit. Right, all the indications were that it was going to be a big hit. Well, here we are a month later. The book went to #1 in the New York Times bestseller list. My colleague John Mitchinson has now had time to read it, but as luck would have it, we realised that both of our guests, Evers and Evans, have also read Lincoln in the Bardo. So I am going. You listeners know my feelings about Lincoln in the Bardo and about George Saunders. I'm going to hand to my colleague John Mitchison and say, John, did you enjoy Lincoln in the Bardo?
Not only did I enjoy it, Andy, I fully join you in my belief that it is an overused word, masterpiece. But I've read 2 contemporary novels in the last 12 months that have totally blown me away and made me rethink what fiction is capable of doing. One was Colson Whitehead's The Underground Railway.
Indeed.
Yes.
And the second was Lincoln in the Bardo by George Saunders. And like you, perhaps, and we're about to find out, I'm struggling a little bit to think why anybody who loves fiction and loves storytelling and loves the possibility of the novel wouldn't say, yo, George, you've knocked it out of the park.
I mean, I thought it was, as you know, very funny, very clever, very moving, and I couldn't put it down. So that to me is fairly straightforward.
Yeah,
However,
that would be
I've become aware that there are other readers
who feel not so much,
who have had a different experience when reading this novel, and 2 of them, I believe, are with us. Who would
two people? It has to be said whose opinions we feel. You know, these are not. We've not pulled in readers off the street here, ladies and gentlemen. We've pulled in people who we feel connected to on a very deep level. I mean, these are people who if Lissa Evans told me to read something, I would read it. If Stuart Evers told me to read something, I would read it. So, guys, over to you.
I thought it was all right.
I'll go along with that.
I mean, it's a very quick read, obviously, because because it's in dialogue. A lot of it is in play form, although it's set out as if it's not in play form. It is essentially a play. There's probably only about 20,000 words in it. You whip through it, and it's very readable, and I enjoyed it. But to say that it's bringing literature several steps forward is extraordinary. It's an experiment, and it's quite a good experiment, but it's just a step sideways. It's not going to change literature as we know it. And I thought it was readable, it was moving in parts, I felt it was touch sentimental, and I thought the end was unbelievably sugary. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
So I would like to go on record as saying that I enjoyed it too, but I do, and I think this is an issue that I shouldn't be swayed, and a reader, one, should not be swayed by the critical reaction to something. But I think it's when you have people that you really care about and people's opinions that you really care about, and they are saying masterpiece and the rest of it, that perhaps you need to, that I do feel like stepping back and recoiling slightly. But it's important to say that I do think it's a good book, and I really enjoyed it, and it's excellently done. However, I have several issues with the book, one of which is genuinely about whether it's really needs to be a novel. What I often consider about a great novel is that it can only be told one way, that a great novel needs to exist only in one form. It couldn't be done in another way. So if you read Paradise by Toni Morrison or As I Lay Dying by Faulkner, they feel like they can only ever be done one way, or Ulysses being a fantastic example, or Mrs. Dalloway. And I feel that this book has been cobbled together from various different things. And at the heart of it is one central image. And that central image, which is inescapable and so wonderfully, brilliantly put together, is Lincoln with his son in the mausoleum, his dead son holding it right. And that image is impossible to get away from. It's like, once that's in your head, you can't get that out of your head. It is utterly, beautifully, incredibly done. But to me, the novel is trying to create an apparatus and a structure and some kind of scaffolding around this particular image, like a persistence of an image. And what he's done is he's tried to cobble together, what it feels like to me is, cobble together makes it sound less good than it actually is, but what he's trying to do is to construct a novel around this particular image, and I don't think that the structural apparatus around it is as good as this particular image. So I also have a problem with the fact that it's clearly written as a play. I mean, in the proof copy that I've got in the back, it actually has an explanation where he says it started life as a play, and which you can definitely see. But on a play, when you've got, and they've just sold the film rights as well, so we will see this.
No,
it's
unfilmable.
But I don't think it is because what's happened is that you've got the flip side of this, where when you're writing a play, you don't have to worry about things like description of what people look like, how they speak, or anything particularly like that, because it's all done in the dialogue. But what Saunders has to do in this, because he understands the way that it's set out, that you get the bit of text and then underneath you get the name. But most people tend to skip the small caps underneath. So what happens is when you're reading it, Saunders has to, and he realises this, that he has to give visual clues or semantic clues to prove that you're reading a different person. So a lot of the voices are actually quite similar in lots and lots of ways because they're of a particular time, etc. So he has to come up with ways to make them different. So like on a stage, you'll see people, and there's the woman with the hat, there's the ghost with the still in their sick box or whatever it is. But he has to give them semantic or visual clues. So there's the one who swears a lot with the lines through the swear words, which is kind of fine, but whatever. It doesn't really do it for me personally. Then there's the way that Willie's narrative bits are done, like kind of E. Cummings poetry, so there's kind of cut up bits, so you know that's Willie before you even get to his name at the bottom. You've got the woman who for some reason speaks phonetically, whereas nobody else does. For no reason whatsoever. So when she says question, it's spelled Qweston, which I guess you're supposed to think this person is less educated than the others. But if you're listening to the voices, then obviously they would all be phonetic, or they're either all phonetic or they're not. There doesn't seem to be a real reason why there is. And I think this is not to take away from a fantastic work of fiction and a brilliant central plank on which this book is placed. But I think to call it a masterpiece papers over some of its definite issues. And what I think is happening is that by the end of it, you're so kind of overwhelmed by the whole the holistic grandeur of it, that actually you're forgiving it for some of its stuff
that is a really good point. Okay, it's time now for an advert. That is a good point, but I might counter to that. I don't disagree with a lot of that,
No,
actually.
absolutely.
But one's appreciation of the book is often determined, I think, by one's enjoyment in the book.
Yeah.
And what you would refer to as papering over, I felt one of the great strengths of the book is this enormous propulsive energy of it, that the rhythm of it, that bounces between the dialogues as they go along, the people speaking, is enough to create a kind of momentum that, as Lissa, which clearly didn't work for you, whereby I felt myself carried along on this sort of wave of invention, linguistic invention. And therefore, when you were saying about the one character who speaks in the particular way she does, for me that totally worked. I didn't have any problem with that, because it's about creating that variety of voices and variety of things to look at when you read. Space, shape, you know, all those things that push you through a book that aren't just about consistency.
But I think that some of this is down to the fact that, and I've had lots of private conversation because this is a, you know, as much as there can be a controversial issue or controversial stance on a novel these days, being not for Lincoln and the Bardo,
But people love it, and I don't want to stop people from
Yeah,
loving
that's
it.
why,
You
but
know,
that's
the
why
thing,
we
yeah.
wanted people
Yeah.
to hear us talking about it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Because it's so exciting to have a novel that people feel.
Both Stuart and I
Yeah.
really enjoyed it.
Let me.
You know,
Yeah. I think there's a thing that happens with a book, which is really, to me, it's really interesting. Is that that strangeness, that difficulty, that kind of oddness, that sense of the floor falling away from under your feet. Sometimes that's the thing that makes something really, really work for you. But sometimes if you've sort of felt, I don't know, it's almost what I felt with it was that I thought this was a book that was so audacious in its ability to mix humour with seriousness, to be formally inventive, and I mean, if you ask me, does it all work? I think probably it doesn't all work. But it's interesting that both of you have had that thing. Is it at a certain point you decided that you couldn't quite buy into what he was doing, and I completely respect that, because that's what's interesting to me about fiction, is that there are novels that push at the boundary of things.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, John, but there's all this stuff about pushing at the boundaries. For me, it's just a bit of tricksiness doing that, and I think it could have been a greater novel if it had been done in prose, as novels are. And for me, it's like half a play jammed together with some beautiful prose. I mean, he writes beautifully. I'm not disputing it, but for me, it's like a party trick.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
I when I read a novel, you know. I don't know. I'm getting a bit squeaky.
No, I think the amazing thing is I kind of understand your point of view completely.
That is amazing.
But I think that this comes back to what I was saying about the feeling like it's wearing a set of clothes rather than the actual book that it could have been. So particularly when in the early sections, which did rub me up a little bit the wrong way, with the historical sources mixed with the fictional historical sources telling you this, and I was like, do some work, write this. If you want to write this, then write it, and you're allowed to have the ghosts are fine. I mean, like if that's what you want to do, but it didn't feel to me like he truly inhabited what he wanted from this as a book. And Lissa, I think that's
yes. I think you said very eloquently what I was thinking. Thank you.
Well, listen, everyone. Thanks very much.
You should still read it.
That's Lincoln and the Bardo is available
incredibly
from
readable.
Bloomsbury.
Yeah.
and
That's fiction, ladies and gentlemen.
and other novels are available. You can choose to listen to Backlisted with or without adverts. If you prefer to listen to it without adverts, you can join us on our Patreon at patreon.com/
patreon.com/backlisted, where you also get bonus content of 2 episodes of Locklisted, the podcast where we talk about the books and films and music that we've been listening to over the last couple of weeks.